So my stutter was really bad, right? Hearing me talk now, every now and again it blows my mind a little bit because I wasn't able to just get one sentence out without getting stuck on various words. And obviously when I got more nervous, that got worse. How's it, everyone? Just wanted to welcome you to episode 3 of the Remed-e podcast. Really excited for this. Today is going to be a solo episode with just me. I'll try not drag it on for too long because I know I can ramble a little bit. But today I want to go into just a little bit of my personal story on confidence and erectile dysfunction as well, and how I kind of manage that. Now, just to make a note before I even start talking about any of this, my story isn't special. It's not spectacular. It's not, I don't want anyone to listen to this and to think like, wow, you didn't go through that much stuff. Like, it's not because I'm fully aware that people battle with things far worse than what I've ever battled with, and I'm sure what I will ever battle with. So I just want to make that clear. I want to make it clear that there's nothing specifically special about it, but I think with regards to what I believe and what we try and help men with within Remed-e, which is managing their health and their confidence in a online and discreet way, I feel like if I had that option when I needed it a few years ago, many years ago, I feel like my journey may have been a little bit easier. So now that you kind of have that little intro, I think let's start kind of all the way back, because I need to build like the picture of where confidence became a problem in my early childhood, for you to understand how it unfolded as I grew older. So I'll try and keep it nice and brief, but I was very, very small. I was young. I was super skinny. I was quite a shy kid. And I picked up a stutter. Now, when I speak, even now in this podcast and some of the ones before, if you go back and listen to them, you will hear every now and again I'll get stuck on a word, I'll get stuck on a letter, and that's just a part of that speech impediment. Now, that's gotten a lot better, but if we just go back there, so I was shy, I was super skinny, and I had this stutter that was really bad, right? So that was kind of at like 5-6 years old that I just picked up the stutter. We don't really know where it came from, and that made my kind of school journey really hard, because obviously kids are mean. All kids are mean. I was mean to many kids at school as well, unfortunately. Because kids just don't really have the EQ to understand other people's struggles and battles and all of those things, right? So yeah, we kind of fast forward up to a point where I start going into high school. I'm super shy. I wasn't the smartest kid at school, so I had to work kind of double as hard to get half the marks that some other people got. I really battled to concentrate. I had ADD. I was on all of the, the Concerta, the Ritalins. I was in every extra lesson that you could possibly think of, extra maths, extra English, extra Afrikaans, all of it, School was not a fun time for me. And just to now go up to the point where so my stutter was really bad, right? Hearing me talk now, every now and again it blows my mind a little bit because I wasn't able to just get one sentence out without getting stuck on various words. And obviously when I got more nervous, that got worse, and one of the things that happened in my schooling kind of time was I had to say an Afrikaans speech. Now, my Afrikaans speech was something that I was super nervous about. Afrikaans wasn't a good subject for me, still isn't. Afrikaans is horrendous. So I got up in front of the class, which was very, very, very hard for me to do. I stood there, I tried to say my speech, I got stuck on a word that I just couldn't seem to get out. I just kind of locked up and froze a bit, and someone in the back of the classroom laughed. And that was basically my worst fear, right? Like my worst fear was that I would try and speak and I would stutter and someone would laugh, and that happened. That was right at the beginning of high school, and that was the last time I ever said a speech in front of the class again. No projects, no presentations, nothing. I told teachers that I wasn't going to speak in front of the class anymore, and they said, well, you have to, otherwise you'll get naught, you'll get zero for your oral exams and that. And I said, absolutely perfect. You can give me zero. As you can hear, I was quite an opinionated kid in school. I said, absolutely fine, you can give me zero, or I can say the speech to you privately at break, but there's absolutely no ways that I'm saying in front of the class. And I kind of won that battle in school just because I just refused, and like, I also don't think teachers can just give you zero for absolutely everything. Like, there has to be a little bit of flexibility sometimes. So I won that war. So now we kind of move into like grade 9, grade 10. I was still super skinny. And I thought, okay, what can I do to like assert myself? I was super skinny, shy. I had this stutter. I didn't want to go on like school camps and those kinds of things because I was nervous to introduce myself. I would often, like at social events, if someone was walking up to me, I would pick up my phone and pretend like I was answering a phone call because I didn't want to engage in conversation. I used to ask certain friends to introduce me to a girl or to anyone else because I was too scared to say my own name. It was quite an interesting time, and it was tough. And it got to the point where I realized, I need to do something to assert myself because I can't do that with my voice. I'm skinny. So I kind of mixed up with the wrong group of friends who were going to the gym and exercising and training. And I started taking anabolic steroids at about 16, kind of early 16. Now, before we go into this next part of this, I just want to make something clear. This isn't a conversation of whether steroids are good or bad, right? That's another whole conversation. Maybe we do that on another podcast with an expert in that field. I'm no expert, but so I just want to make that clear that like, let's just park the conversation of steroids being good, bad. Like, let's keep on the conversation of like the confidence issue that we're going into. Okay. So I started dabbling in that. And suddenly I picked up a whole lot of muscle, right? I went from being like 57, 58 kgs to, being like 75, 78, like 81, so picked up a whole lot of weight, over like 16, 17, 18 years old. And I started getting noticed in school. I would arrive at school and, people would make comments, and I was like, okay, I've now found something. I've now found something that I can do that can give me attention. Right. So I thought, well, like, this is great. Like I feel great. Like getting into this training thing, I was like selling supplements in school, and the money I made from the supplements, I would buy steroids, and like it was just for me that time I was like I was the guy, because I'd picked up all this muscle, and and I was being noticed and being given attention, and that kind of carried on, like 18, 19, 20, 21, and I got to the point where I was like, you know what, I'm tired of this. Like, I had to inject myself with this stuff. I was just like, you know what, I'm a little bit tired of this. Like, let me come off of it, because then like the novelty of me being a slightly bigger guy or a stronger guy, like, then wasn't so cool anymore, because that's just how I was, right? So I then got to the point where I was like, like I feel like I'm battling with my confidence again. Like, I'm a big guy, or a bigger guy. I wasn't ever a big guy. Bigger, and that attention kind of started to fizzle out again. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to stop this. I'm sure it's not good for my health. Even though I was researching and reading things, like, I just knew it probably wasn't a great long-term thing to do. And I came off, and I felt terrible, and then I battled with erectile dysfunction. Now, you can imagine someone being 21 years old and battling with erectile dysfunction, not a very proud moment. Super insecure about that, lots of anxiety. You don't really want to talk to anyone about that, which is obviously something that we deal with inside Remed-e every single day, right? And that's why we created it. But then decided, okay, well, not really ready to face this yet. Like, let me just go back on to steroids and just kind of see what happens. So I did that, and I realized that the ED kind of issue went away, and I was like, all right, great. So I stayed on for a couple of months, and then I was like, okay, let's try that again. Came off, felt shit, because obviously your natural hormones and your natural testosterone, everything just takes a big dive. And I was in the same position. I was like, well, I'm battling here. And then I went back on. And that happened like 3-4 times. And I finally got to the point, probably about 22, 23. So now if you just think about this, I've now basically been on steroids for nearly 6-7 years by the time I was like 22, 23, right? So some people only start taking these things at that age, or even older. We are, in fact, definitely older, 28, 29, 30, 31. So anyway, I got to a point where I went to my parents and I said, listen, like, this is what's going on. I have this issue. Like, I need some help. Obviously, they went absolutely crazy. And that was really hard, because you have to kind of confront and come to the realization that, like, you are going down a bad path here, and you actually need some help. So yeah, I went and got some help, and I got a whole lot of blood work done, and my blood work was absolutely terrible. My liver was terrible. My kidneys were terrible. Like, my blood pressure, my cholesterol, like it was just an absolute mess. I remember the doctor turning around and asking me if I drank, and at that point I wasn't, and I didn't really drink a huge amount. And And yeah, he said, like, your blood results are kind of the same as like a 50-something-year-old, like raging alcoholic, which was scary, And I then started like 2-3 years of lots of hormone treatment to try and get my natural levels back to where they should be. And that led to a whole heap of other health issues. And it finally got to the point where my natural testosterone levels did not come back online, right? Some people, these things affect everyone differently. People can take steroids for years, come off, and they're fine. People can take steroids 2-3 times and come off, and they're never fine again, right? It's like a very, very personal thing. So I had to get put onto hormone replacement therapy, which is expensive. Medical aid doesn't pay for it because obviously we can't prove to medical aid that I had this problem when I was young. It was all obviously very self-inflicted. And yeah, so I'm now on hormone replacement therapy. It's not really a huge thing. It's an injection I have to do every week, and like a few other tablets and this and that, and yeah, so I live a very healthy life now. My hormones don't affect me now, but the reason that I wanted to talk about this issue and my story around this is because one needs to understand that not talking about an issue, so I didn't really speak about the fact that I was really battling with my confidence. All right. Like, everyone knew it, but, everyone knew it, but I wasn't really talking about it, And so I just decided to find like a quick solution. And a note on this, and people might disagree with this. Maybe it's a little controversial, I don't know. But finding a quick fix to your problem, or pretending something doesn't exist when it does, is a great solution for the short term. And it really is a great solution, right? And like, if you think about it, for half of kind of high school moving up to like 21, 22, like I felt great, and yes, it wasn't healthy. Yes, I was pretending I was someone and I actually wasn't. Like, yes to all of those things, but like I felt amazing, until I didn't. And when that happened, like, the problem that I was facing was now far worse than the problem that I was facing when I was 16, 17. I was battling with a bit of confidence, and I was battling with my speech. Now I was battling with my confidence, my speech, erectile dysfunction, my hormones, my liver, my kidney, my cholesterol, my blood pressure. Like, I lied to my parents, so there was a lot of like resentment there. Like, there was a lot of stuff, that I was now dealing with because I didn't want to have some of the harder conversations then. Now, I don't regret really what I did, because like I've learned a lot during that process. But the point that I really want to make, and I want to drive home, is that you can pretend your issue isn't there. You can hide it or mask it with however you decide to do that, whether it be steroids, whether it be alcohol, whether it be drugs. And that is great in the short term. But there will come a time where you have to pay the price for that. And unfortunately, if you leave it for too long, that price that you pay will most probably be some sort of long-term damage or price that you pay of some kind. And I'm not saying it's easy, because it's not. But what I am saying is, and again, my story isn't crazy special, but for that bit of discomfort of working through my stuff and being honest with my psychologists and my therapists who I just lied to for years and years and years about what was going on, and you think about that, like, how crazy is that, right? You're in a room with someone and that's meant to be like your super safe space, and I spoke about the things that I was comfortable speaking about, but not the things that I wasn't comfortable speaking about, right? So yeah, I think it's great for the short term, but you will get to a point where you pay the price for that, and unfortunately, it's probably going to be a far bigger price than you would have paid in the beginning. And you don't pay that price in the beginning because it's uncomfortable and it doesn't feel good. But one thing that I'd love to try and drive home here is the fact that, like, hard things are not going to be comfortable. There are going to be times in your life where you have to do certain things and make certain decisions, or have certain consultations with doctors, or speak about certain things, and it's not comfortable. Now, it's not supposed to be comfortable, right? Because it's a hard thing in life. Like, not everything is easy. Some things are very difficult to speak about. But, and this is a huge but, once you've spoken about them and it's out in the open, you very quickly realize that it actually isn't, the response you get isn't as bad as you thought it would be. That's number one. And number two, the solution to your problem or your issue or your medical condition or your mental health issue, whatever it may be, the solution, if you face it early enough, really, most probably isn't going to be that hard of a solution, if that makes sense. If you leave it, obviously that then compounds and compounds and compounds, and it gets to a point where what maybe could have been, for example, let's say for me, right, just as an example, and I don't know this because, like, I can't know because I didn't really face this, but like, let's say what maybe could have been a bit of honest therapy and maybe like an antidepressant of some kind or a medication of some kind, just to help kind of calm me down so I could feel a little bit better in class and not feel like I was bundled up with all this anxiety. Like, maybe that could have been a solution, but now, it turned into steroid use and alcoholism and lying to my therapists and now hormone replacement therapy and like spending tons of money to try and get my body right and all these things, right? So I think for me, that's the main point that I'm trying to get across here, is the fact that sometimes things are difficult, and I believe everyone knows this, but sometimes I think people just need a little reminder. The fact that sometimes things are difficult, and they're difficult for a reason, and facing those things as early as you can will be difficult and will be uncomfortable, but it's 100% the better solution. And I speak from my personal experience of dealing with your issues as honestly and aggressively as you can when they come up, and just face that bit of discomfort early so you can face it, get over it, and then continue living a better life thereafter. And one of the biggest reasons we created Remed-e was for this reason. So we help men with hair loss and erectile dysfunction. And those are two conversations that have become conversations in a doctor's rooms where you go to the doctor for the flu or for tonsillitis or a throat infection, and you get to a point right at the end of the consult and you go, "Oh yeah, doc, I'm also battling with this. Like, what do you think about that?" So they've become "oh yeah" conversations. So it's not like you go and speak to your doctor about ED. It's like a little tiny bit that you try to throw into a conversation. And it really doesn't have to be that way. And I understand, you might not want to speak to your family GP about your erectile dysfunction or your hair loss or this or that. And I get it. But that's why we've created something like Remed-e, where you can have a consult with a doctor 100% online. You never have to meet them. You never have to see them. You just have to speak to them on the phone. Your delivery of your treatment is discreet. It's not marked. There are solutions out there to help you manage health issues a little more kind of discreetly, but you still have to make that first move. You still have to turn around and say, "I'm battling with something. I've tried to sort it out on my own. It's not getting better. I can pretend this isn't an issue, but it is, and it is getting worse as well, and it will continue to get worse. Let me just pick up the phone or speak to a doctor and just get this 15 minutes of being super uncomfortable out and get a solution or a treatment or a way forward that will make your life easier." And if you are battling with any issue, whether it be a mental health issue or a health issue, as I said a few minutes ago, pretending like it's not there is a great solution for the short term. But don't let it get to a point where it catches up with you, and now the small issue that you had is now a far bigger issue, and it's more complex and requires more medication, more therapy, more treatment. And we haven't even gotten into the fact of how some of these issues may affect the people around you and how you may abuse the people around you, not necessarily physically, but we're talking about emotionally, because you're not feeling your best, and because you aren't confident and you're not feeling your best, and maybe you're binge eating because you have nothing else to kind of take your frustration out. You being a bad example to your kids. You don't have time for your kids or for your wife or for your husband or whatever it is. These issues do spiral, and what may be a little bit of erectile dysfunction or hair loss or a mental health issue further down the line becomes far more than just that. So I urge you, let's try and manage your issue when it's just that, instead of letting it run to a point where your entire life is starting to unravel because you're just a little bit afraid to face a few minutes of being really uncomfortable. And yeah, from my experience, I say let's rather be a little bit uncomfortable for 15 minutes and face it and get a solution than have your whole life spiral out of control. And I think you might agree. So yeah, we're going to wrap it up there. I hope you got some value from that. Once again, just make a little note that my story isn't special by any means, but I think it is something that you might be able to relate to with whatever you're dealing with. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if you did. But apart from that, thanks for listening.